The Galactic Council had been watching humanity for years. They had observed the rapid expansion of the human race beyond their homeworld and into the stars at an unprecedented pace. The growth of the Terran colonies had unsettled the ancient civilizations that formed the Council for centuries. They had maintained a fragile balance of power between their species, using diplomacy, fear, and superior technology to keep control of the galaxy. But humanity's arrival threatened that balance, a species that was both bold and unpredictable. Their relentless drive to explore and conquer the stars had sparked alarm in the minds of the Council leaders. In a secret meeting on the Council's homeworld, representatives from every corner of the galaxy gathered to discuss the human threat. The leaders of the Elfar Dominion, the Exarethi Alliance, the Shalnok Empire, and the Vidarian Collective exchanged anxious glances. Their once unstoppable grip on the galaxy was now at risk. They all agreed that something had to be done before humanity became too powerful, before Earth's influence spread any further. The decision was made. The Council would issue an ultimatum to humanity, a clear and decisive order to stop their expansion, disarm their military forces, and submit to the Council's rule or face destruction. The message was crafted with careful precision, a warning not to be ignored. The Council believed that their technological superiority and centuries of experience would force humanity into submission, but they underestimated one critical thing: the human spirit. As the message was broadcast across the galaxy, it echoed through every corner of human space, from the barren moons of the outer colonies to the bustling cities of Earth. The Galactic Council's ultimatum reached every ear, and for a moment there was silence as people processed the message. What did this mean for the future of humanity? Were they truly going to bow to a group of alien overlords who believed themselves to be the rightful rulers of the stars? President Evelyn Carter stood before a crowd of millions gathered in Earth's capital, her face unwavering. As she read the ultimatum aloud, her voice strong and steady, as she spoke of humanity's resilience, of their refusal to be cowed by anyone, let alone a group of distant alien rulers who saw them as nothing more than a threat to their power. She knew that this was not just a matter of survival. It was about the soul of humanity itself. This was a challenge for their very existence, and she would not let them fall into subjugation. She raised her head high as the crowd roared their approval. Her words were clear and unwavering. "We will not surrender. We will not bow to anyone. The Terran fleet is ready. We will defend our home and our people at any cost. This is not just a war for survival. It is a war for freedom, and we will never stop fighting for it." And just like that, humanity's response to the Galactic Council was set. They would stand firm against impossible odds. They would fight to preserve their place among the stars, no matter the cost. The Terran fleet would be their shield and their sword, and they would make the galaxy know that Earth was a force to be reckoned with, no matter how old or advanced the civilizations that opposed them might be. The response from Earth was swift and resolute. President Evelyn Carter's speech had stirred the hearts of billions across the planet. But behind the scenes, the United Terran Alliance was already making preparations that would take the galaxy by surprise. The Galactic Council may have thought humanity was a threat to be extinguished, but they had severely underestimated the strength of the Terran people and their ability to innovate and adapt under pressure. In the hidden underground complexes on Mars and the moon Europa, military scientists and engineers worked around the clock constructing the Terran fleet, a vast armada that had been in development for years in secret. While the Council believed humanity to be a fledgling species with only rudimentary space exploration capabilities, the Terran engineers had been designing warships capable of holding their own against any alien force. The fleet would be humanity's declaration to the stars that they would not be subjugated. At the heart of the fleet's power was the Terran Vanguard, a colossal battleship designed for deep space warfare. It dwarfed any ship the Council had seen in their history and carried technology that no alien civilization could have imagined. When the Vanguard was completed, it was a symbol of humanity's unyielding willpower, but the Vanguard was only the beginning. The rest of the fleet included state-of-the-art cruisers, agile destroyers, and a fleet of small strike fighters designed for hit-and-run tactics that were a hallmark of human ingenuity. Each ship was equipped with advanced shields that could withstand the powerful energy weapons used by the Council's forces, and most importantly, the Terran fleet relied on human unpredictability in battle, an instinctive creativity in warfare that no eyed or alien strategist could anticipate. One of the fleet's commanders, Admiral Jake Sheridan, known for his tactical brilliance, was entrusted with leading the initial response against the Council's overwhelming forces. His experience in asymmetrical warfare, honed during the human wars of unification on Earth, made him the perfect leader for this critical mission. The mission was clear. Humanity would not wait to be attacked. They would strike first and establish their place in the galaxy. On Earth, Admiral Sheridan and his command staff gathered in a highly secure command center situated beneath the surface of a mountain range in the western United States. The room was a hub of activity as plans were made and recalculated, every decision made with the weight of the future of humanity hanging in the balance. The Terran Vanguard and its fleet of warships would be the spearhead of humanity's first offensive against the Galactic Council. As the fleets were mobilized, humanity's first test came when a Council reconnaissance ship ventured too close to Earth's space perimeter. The Terran fleet saw an opportunity to send a message, a warning to the Council that they were not as easily cowed as their message implied. The Council's ship, the Mirtha's Hope, was a high-tech scout vessel designed to gather intelligence on potential threats. It had no idea what was coming. The Terran fleet deployed an ambush using stealth technologies and small, fast attack ships to disable the Hope's sensors before engaging in a precise strike that crippled the alien vessel. The humans had won their first battle in the war, without even a single shot fired from the Vanguard. The message was clear. Humanity was not to be underestimated. And with this victory, the Terran fleet had sent shockwaves across the galaxy, making it abundantly clear that Earth had joined the ranks of the stars and would not be silenced or dominated by the Galactic Council. The first battle was over, but the war for humanity's future had only just begun. The first victory against the Galactic Council had left the galaxy in shock. The Mirtha's Hope had been a mere reconnaissance ship, but the sheer audacity and effectiveness of the Terran strike rattled the confidence of the Council. They had believed that humanity, a species barely out of their solar system, would crumble in the face of overwhelming power. Instead, they had just faced an opponent who fought with ferocity, ingenuity, and resolve. The Council quickly realized they were no longer dealing with a fledgling species. They were facing a dangerous force. The Terran fleet's success was not without consequence. In retaliation, the Galactic Council deployed a full assault on Mars, Earth's main military stronghold, in an attempt to cripple humanity's capacity for resistance. A massive fleet of Council warships, led by the formidable dreadnought Koromal, descended upon the Red Planet. The message was clear. Earth's rebellion would be put down swiftly and decisively. The Terran people were not intimidated. Under the leadership of Admiral Jake Sheridan, the Terran fleet went on high alert, preparing for what would be the first large-scale battle of the war. The fleet's main force assembled in the asteroid belt, hidden in the shadow of massive rocks and dust clouds to avoid detection. Aware of the superior firepower the Council possessed, the humans relied on their adaptability and their knowledge of the solar system to turn the tables. As the Council's fleet approached Mars, they expected a quick and easy strike. But what they didn't anticipate was the way humans had turned the environment of their own system against them. The asteroid belt had been carefully mapped, and as the Council fleet entered its boundaries, Terran forces launched a deadly trap. From hidden positions, they deployed swarms of automated drones designed to harass and confuse the enemy. These drones, seemingly small and insignificant, used rapid movement and jamming tactics to cripple the Council fleet's sensors and communications, throwing their formations into chaos. In the ensuing confusion, the Terran fleet made its move. The Terran Vanguard, with its unmatched firepower and size, led the charge, smashing through the Council's defensive lines. With their superior shields and innovative weaponry, The Terran warships launched barrages of energy blasts that crippled several of the Council's flagship vessels. The Coromal responded with a devastating counterstrike, but the humans were ready. A team of elite Terran engineers, aboard a specially outfitted stealth ship, infiltrated the Coromal systems, triggering a cascade of failures that turned the mighty dreadnought into a floating wreck. The battle was fierce, with both sides suffering heavy losses, yet it was clear that the Terran fleet had proven their worth. Against overwhelming odds, the humans had fought with unparalleled courage, using every advantage they had. The Council's fleet, once so sure of victory, was forced into retreat, limping away from the battlefield with barely half of their ships intact. On Mars, the celebrations were immediate. Across Earth's colonies, the victory was heralded as a monumental moment in human history. The Terran people had stood firm against an overwhelming force, and they had triumphed. But even as they celebrated, the leaders of the Galactic Council were already plotting their next move. The war was far from over. The Terran fleet had shown its might, but the Council would come back with everything they had. In the aftermath of the battle, President Evelyn Carter addressed the people of Earth once more. Her voice was steady but fierce. "This victory is just the beginning. We will defend our home, our colonies, and our future, no matter what comes next. We are no longer just a species among the stars. We are a force to be reckoned with, and we will never bow to tyranny." With the Council's retreat, humanity had won its first true victory in the war. But the cost was clear. The next battle would be even more dangerous, and the stakes higher than ever. As the war raged on, the Galactic Council struggled to regain its composure. The defeat at Mars had shaken their faith in their own superiority. The Terran fleet was far more dangerous than they had anticipated, and it was becoming clear that humanity would not be easily crushed. For the first time, the Council was forced to reconsider its strategy. They needed to hit back harder, and fast, before the growing Terran fleet could turn the tide of the war in humanity's favor. In the heart of Council space, a top-secret operation was being planned. The Council had one trump card left: the Ecliptica, a colossal warship unlike any other in the galaxy. Armed with a superweapon capable of vaporizing entire fleets in a single shot, the Ecliptica was the Council's most formidable asset. It was also their last hope to strike fear into humanity and demonstrate the unyielding power of their rule. The ship was scheduled to make its way to Terran space, with orders to obliterate any resistance and ensure the human race would fall in line. But the Terran fleet, ever resourceful, had already prepared for this eventuality. Admiral Jake Sheridan and his top commanders knew that if they were to have any chance of winning the war, they had to neutralize the Ecliptica before it could reach Earth. It was a bold and risky plan, but it was their best shot at crippling the Council's most powerful asset. Sheridan's fleet set a course for a hidden system on the outer rim of the galaxy, far from Council radar. There, nestled within the remnants of an ancient asteroid field, the Terrans had constructed a small but highly advanced stealth ship, a prototype that had been kept secret even from many within the fleet. This ship, the Shadow Strike, was equipped with cutting-edge cloaking technology and the ability to disable enemy systems with precision strikes. Its mission was clear: infiltrate the Ecliptica and sabotage its core systems from within. As the Shadow Strike made its way toward the enemy flagship, the rest of the fleet prepared to engage the Council in a diversionary attack. The goal was to distract the Ecliptica's fleet long enough for the Shadow Strike to slip past their defenses and board the superweapon. The Shadow Strike crew, led by Captain Kira Valen, a veteran of the Earth Wars, braced for the most dangerous mission they had ever undertaken. Inside the tiny stealth ship, the crew prepared for the harrowing task ahead. They knew that if they failed, the Ecliptica would lay waste to everything they had fought for. As they entered Council space, the tension was palpable, but their resolve was ironclad. The mission began with a dramatic twist. The Shadow Strike's cloaking technology allowed it to approach the Ecliptica undetected, slipping past the enemy's defenses with ease. But when they finally breached the superweapons hull, they discovered something unexpected. The Ecliptica was more than just a weapon. It was a symbol of the Council's arrogance. The ship's central core was protected by layers of advanced technology, including a network of biomechanical defenses designed to repel invaders. What followed was a deadly game of cat and mouse. As the Shadow Strike's team infiltrated the core, they encountered vicious resistance from the ship's AI-driven security forces, creatures and machines designed to eliminate any threat. Captain Valen's team fought tooth and nail, using every piece of technology at their disposal to disable the biomechanical defenses. The clock was ticking. If they didn't disable the Ecliptica in time, the superweapon would be ready to fire, and humanity's future would be in peril. In a pulse-pounding series of close calls and unexpected twists, Captain Valen and her team finally succeeded. They managed to trigger a cascade of failures within the Ecliptica systems, rendering the superweapon inert and disabling its shield array. The mission was a success, but they had little time to escape before the Council forces realized what had happened. Back at Terran Command, Admiral Sheridan received the news of the mission's success. For the first time in the war, humanity had dealt a blow that could not be ignored. The Ecliptica, once the symbol of the Council's might, was now a derelict hulk. It would never fire another shot. The victory sent a powerful message across the galaxy. Humanity was not only capable of holding its own, they were capable of striking directly at the heart of the Council's power. The Terran fleet had won another crucial battle, but they knew this was only the beginning. The Council would not stop, and humanity's fight for freedom would only grow more intense. Yet one thing was clear: humanity had proven itself, and there was no turning back. As the Terran fleet's reputation spread across the galaxy, cracks began to appear within the Galactic Council. The once unstoppable empire, built upon centuries of dominance, was now facing the unthinkable. An upstart species, barely a century out of their homeworld's atmosphere, was challenging their supremacy. The victory at the Ecliptica and the destruction of the flagship had sent shockwaves through Council ranks, leaving them scrambling to reassess their strategy. The Galactic Council had always been a coalition of ancient species, each with their own agendas, but their unity had always been enforced by their shared belief in their superiority. Yet, as the Terran victories piled up, dissent began to bubble to the surface. Some species began to see the potential of aligning with humanity, while others feared that their own future in the galaxy was at risk if they allowed the Terrans to rise. The Council had ruled the galaxy through fear, but now that fear was becoming mutual. The question was no longer whether humanity would submit, but how much of the galaxy was willing to see humanity as the new power. On Earth, President Evelyn Carter held secret meetings with representatives of alien species who had defected from the Council or had secretly aligned themselves with humanity. These alien species had been watching, waiting for the right moment to break free from the Council's oppressive grip. Earth's willingness to fight for its freedom had sparked something in them, a desire for something better, something more equal. These new alliances were vital, and President Carter knew that even though humanity's military might was growing, their true strength lay in uniting others against the Council's rule. Meanwhile, Admiral Jake Sheridan and his fleet commanders worked tirelessly to expand humanity's military presence in the galaxy. The Terran fleet was becoming a symbol of defiance, a force that not only protected human space, but had begun to liberate systems once under the thumb of the Council. The first liberated planets had been small, isolated colonies, but with each victory, more and more alien species had begun to join the Terran cause. The Terran fleet's battleships, once lone beacons of human might, now flew under the banners of dozens of different species, united in their shared vision of a free galaxy. Sheridan's next major target was the Council's shipyards, vast, fortified stations where they produced the warships that had once been so formidable. Without these supply lines, the Council would be unable to replace their losses, and their ability to project power across the galaxy would be crippled. The Terran fleet gathered for its most ambitious mission yet, a full-scale assault on the shipyards in the Droska system, deep within Council territory. The operation was risky. Any mistake could result in the loss of dozens of ships, but it was a strike they couldn't afford to miss. The battle was a brutal one, fought on multiple fronts. The Terran fleet's forces arrived in the Droska system under the cover of a powerful solar storm, using the chaos of the storm to mask their approach. As they closed in on the shipyards, a fleet of Council warships was waiting for them. The Council was not about to let their most valuable resource fall without a fight. The ensuing battle was nothing short of a spectacle. The Terran ships fought with the same unrelenting ferocity that had characterized their earlier victories, but now they had the advantage of overwhelming numbers. Human ingenuity and determination proved to be the deciding factor. In the midst of the chaos, a squadron of Terran stealth bombers infiltrated the heart of the shipyard and delivered a devastating blow to the Council's central command facility. The resulting explosion decimated the production lines, sending shockwaves through the Council's fleet. The shipyards were lost, and the Terran fleet had dealt yet another crippling blow to the Council's war machine. In the aftermath of the battle, humanity's influence in the galaxy continued to grow. The destruction of the shipyard sent a powerful message to the Council's remaining allies. Humanity was not just a force to be reckoned with, they were the future of the galaxy. The Terran fleet had proven itself again, and now, as more and more species turned their eyes to Earth, the Council began to question whether it could survive the revolution that was unfolding before them. On Earth, President Carter stood before a global audience. Her voice was calm but carried the weight of victory. This is not just a victory for humanity. This is a victory for freedom, for unity, and for the future of the galaxy. We stand together, stronger than ever, and we will continue this fight until the last remnants of the Council fall. The battle was far from over, but the Terran fleet's successes had irrevocably changed the course of the war. The Galactic Council was on the back foot, and humanity was poised to take its place among the stars as a force that would shape the galaxy's future. The Galactic Council had never anticipated the Terran fleet's rapid and relentless rise to power. In just a matter of months, humanity had shifted the balance of the war, and the Council found itself scrambling to regain control. The Terran fleet, with its unorthodox tactics and growing alliances, had struck at the heart of the Council's military infrastructure, and the losses they had sustained were beginning to mount. The once proud Council was no longer the invincible force it had been. Now, it was fractured and vulnerable. Admiral Jake Sheridan knew that this was the moment to strike, the moment when the Council could be dealt a blow from which it might never recover. He had his sights set on a daring operation, the Great Battle of the Nebula, a confrontation that would take place in the Talaris Nebula, a vast and chaotic cloud of gas and dust that had long been considered an inhospitable place for combat. The nebula was known for its interference with sensors and communications, making it the perfect location for a battle where stealth, ingenuity, and the element of surprise would be humanity's greatest weapons. The Terran fleet had spent months preparing for this battle. Sheridan and his commanders had studied the nebula's intricate currents, its turbulent environment, and its hidden passages. They knew that in order to survive, they would need to outsmart the Council and use their unconventional tactics to their advantage. The human fleet was smaller in number, but it had one advantage the Council could not match: adaptability. The humans could think on their feet, act quickly, and exploit weaknesses in ways the Council's highly regimented forces could not. As the Terran ships entered the nebula's fringes, they activated their advanced cloaking systems, vanishing into the swirling gas clouds that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. The Council fleet, led by the dreadnought Exultant Fury, moved cautiously into the nebula, unaware that it was walking directly into a trap. The Terran fleet had already begun to maneuver, using the nebula's chaotic environment to mask their movements. The element of surprise would be key, and the humans were prepared to strike when the time was right. For the first hours of the battle, the two fleets danced around each other in the dense fog of the nebula. The Council's ships were powerful and equipped with sophisticated weaponry, but they struggled to maintain cohesion in the absence of clear communication. The Terran fleet, on the other hand, struck with calculated precision, launching small, fast-strike ships to harry the Council's flanks. The Vanguard, now a symbol of human defiance, led the charge, using its superior firepower to disable the Council's advanced cruisers. Sheridan's strategy was simple: wear the Council down. The nebula's interference was the perfect cover for small, nimble Terran ships to wreak havoc, cutting through the enemy lines with surgical strikes and then disappearing into the mist before the Council could retaliate. The battle became a deadly game of cat and mouse, with the Terran fleet constantly shifting its position, using the nebulous environment to confuse and disorient the Council forces. But the exultant fury was not to be underestimated. It was a beast of a ship, heavily armored and equipped with devastating weapons, and its captain, Admiral Toreth, was a battle-hardened veteran who refused to let humanity's rise go unchecked. As the battle dragged on, Toreth ordered his fleet to adopt a more aggressive strategy. The Council ships activated their long-range particle beams, tearing through the nebula's interference and trying to lock onto the Terran ships with advanced targeting systems. The battle reached a boiling point when Sheridan ordered the Terran fleet to engage in a full frontal assault. The Vanguard, accompanied by a handful of destroyers, launched a concentrated barrage of energy blasts at the exultant Fury, hoping to break its shield and expose its vulnerable core. For a moment, the tide seemed to turn in the Council's favor as the exultant Fury unleashed its devastating counterfire. But just as the Council seemed poised for victory, the Terran fleet unveiled its trump card: a specialized EMP device designed to disable the Council's advanced targeting systems and render their ships blind. The EMP wave rippled through the battlefield, disabling the Council's sensor systems and leaving their ships vulnerable. In that moment, the Terran fleet struck with everything they had. The exultant Fury, deprived of its sight, was overwhelmed by a swarm of Terran fighters that swarmed its defenses. The battle reached its crescendo as the Vanguard delivered a final decisive strike that crippled the exultant Fury, sending the Council's flagship spiraling into the depths of the nebula. With the fall of the exultant Fury, the Council's morale shattered. Their command ship, their pride, had been defeated in front of their very eyes. The Terran fleet, having successfully outwitted and outgunned their enemy, had secured an overwhelming victory. The Council's forces retreated in disarray, unable to mount a meaningful counteroffensive. The great battle of the nebula had been won, and the Terran fleet stood victorious. But the war was far from over. The Council would not fall so easily, and as the Terrans celebrated their success, they knew that the hardest battles were still ahead. One thing was certain, however: humanity had proven that it was no longer an underdog in the galaxy. They were a force to be reckoned with. The great battle of the nebula had sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council. The Terran fleet's stunning victory over the exultant Fury had not only crippled one of their most powerful warships, but had also shattered their confidence in their ability to defeat humanity. The Council's remaining forces limped back to their strongholds, licking their wounds and regrouping, but deep within the heart of their leadership, something even more unsettling was brewing. They knew the war was far from over. In fact, it had reached a critical juncture. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council was facing a direct existential threat. Their once immense power had been chipped away by a species they had initially dismissed as a fleeting nuisance. As the Terran fleet's influence spread across the galaxy, more and more systems were defecting from Council control, pledging their allegiance to humanity's cause. The momentum was on Earth's side, and the Council knew that if they didn't act quickly, they would lose their grip on the galaxy forever. The Council convened an emergency session in their grandest chamber, the Conclave of Elders, where representatives from each of the ancient civilizations gathered to debate their next course of action. Desperation hung in the air, as the leaders of the Elfar Dominion, the Hexarethi Alliance, and the Shalnok Empire realized that the Terrans were not going to back down. "We cannot allow this human plague to spread any further," declared Velkra, the ruthless representative of the Shalnok Empire. "Their resistance to our might proves that they are too dangerous to be left unchecked. We must destroy them before they unite all the systems under their banner." "I agree," said Zorinth, the cold-blooded leader of the Sarathi Alliance. "Their victories have emboldened too many weaklings. We cannot allow them to believe that they can challenge the Galactic Council. We need to strike now, before the Terran fleet grows any stronger." But the oldest and wisest member of the council, Saphira, the Empress of the Elthar Dominion, stood silent. For years, her people had ruled with subtlety and grace, but the events of the last few months had shaken even her conviction. The Terran fleet was no longer an annoyance. It was an evolving threat that could not be ignored. "The Terrans are not like us," she said, her voice measured and calm. "Their strength lies not in their technology, but in their resolve. We have underestimated them, and now we must reconsider our approach. If we strike at them again, we risk igniting a conflict we cannot control. Perhaps it is time to negotiate." Her words fell like stones in a pond, sending ripples across the chamber. The room fell silent, and for a moment, all the council's leaders considered the possibility that the war might not be won through force. Could the Terrans be reasoned with? Could they be stopped without further bloodshed? Negotiation. Velkra scoffed. "They are too proud. They will never bow to us." Saphira's gaze sharpened. "They will not bow to you, but they may listen to reason if we offer them something more than destruction. A peace that ensures their survival, not just our domination." While the debate raged on, the Terran fleet was preparing for its next move. Admiral Sheridan had learned of the Council's internal discord, and he knew that the time had come to exploit their weakness. The Council's unity had already been cracked by the recent defeats. The opportunity to deal a decisive blow was too great to ignore. Sheridan called for a council of his own, this time not only with his top commanders, but with the leaders of the various liberated species who had pledged their allegiance to humanity. They discussed their strategy, and while there was no clear consensus on what the next step should be, there was one thing they all agreed on. Humanity was no longer just fighting to survive. They were fighting for something more. They were fighting for freedom, for unity, and for a future where no species would be dominated by the will of an ancient, oppressive empire. "We can't afford to wait any longer," Admiral Sheridan said, standing before the assembled leaders. "The council is fractured. It's time we take advantage of that. We strike now. At their heart, we cripple their ability to communicate, to coordinate. We show them that the galaxy no longer bends to their will." The Terran fleet's next mission would be their boldest yet. They would move directly into the heart of Council space, targeting their most vital command center, the Aurelis Nexus, the network through which the Council coordinated all its operations. If they could cripple the Aurelis Nexus, the Council would lose the ability to coordinate their fleets and direct their forces. It would leave them fractured and vulnerable, unable to mount any effective resistance. But this would not be an easy task. The Aurelis Nexus was heavily guarded, protected by some of the Council's best warriors, most advanced technology, and a defense system capable of neutralizing any strike. It would take all of humanity's ingenuity, strength, and courage to pull it off. And the risks were enormous. The Terran fleet could lose everything in the final assault. Yet, with their morale high and their resolve unshakable, the Terran fleet was ready. The time had come to take the war to the heart of the Galactic Council and prove once and for all that humanity would not be ruled. The future of the galaxy rested on the next battle. The final strike against the Galactic Council was set into motion. The Terran fleet had amassed all its forces, readying itself for the most daring assault in human history. The Aurelis Nexus, the beating heart of the Council's communications and coordination, was located deep within Council territory, heavily protected by elite fleets and defenses. The Council had long since become aware of the Terran threat, and now they were preparing for an onslaught they believed would end the war. Admiral Jake Sheridan knew that if humanity was to stand a chance, they would need every advantage they could muster. The plan was intricate, designed to exploit the Council's internal disarray and their over-reliance on their centralized command structure. The Aurelius Nexus was the linchpin of the entire Council war effort, and if it were destroyed, the Council would lose its ability to coordinate fleets, deploy forces, and carry out strategic operations. It would throw the entire empire into chaos. Sheridan's fleet was divided into 3 task forces. The first would carry out a diversionary attack on the Council's peripheral systems, drawing attention away from the real threat. The second, a small elite force, would infiltrate the Aurelius Nexus, using advanced stealth technology to slip past the vast array of defenses. The third would be a backup force, positioned in the event the plan went awry. This was a mission with no room for error. Failure would mean the end of the Terran fleet. As the fleet made its way toward the Council's heart, Sheridan could feel the weight of the decision upon him. Earth, the colonies, the liberated species, they were all depending on the success of this mission. There was no turning back. The war had reached its climax, and the outcome would determine the fate of the galaxy. The journey was treacherous. The Terran forces navigated through asteroid fields, hostile space, and countless traps set by the Council. Each moment was fraught with danger, but the Terrans pushed forward, unwavering. The Shadow Strike, the stealth ship that had once crippled the Ecliptica, was once again at the forefront of the operation. Its crew, led by Captain Kira Valen, had perfected the art of infiltration. They would lead the charge to disable the Aurelius Nexus, breaching its heavily defended hull and planting the explosives that would bring it down. As the mission unfolded, it became clear that the Council was prepared for this exact move. The Aurelius Nexus was surrounded by elite warships and autonomous defense drones, each designed to track and destroy anything that ventured too close. But the Terran fleet had anticipated this, and they had come prepared with countermeasures. The battle became a dance of cat and mouse as the Shadow Strike and its companions used every tool at their disposal to confuse and overwhelm the Council's defenses. The Council fleet responded with all its fury. Admiral Toreth, who had once commanded the Exultant Fury, had been put in charge of the final defense of the Aurelius Nexus. His anger at the loss of his flagship fueled his desire to crush humanity once and for all. However, despite his formidable leadership and the sheer power of his forces, he could not counter the unpredictable tactics of the Terrans. Sheridan's forces, although smaller in number, outpaced and outmaneuvered the Council at every turn. As the battle raged on, Captain Valen and her team made their move. The Shadow Strike's crew infiltrated the heart of the Aurelius Nexus, navigating through a labyrinth of security systems, automated drones, and biomechanical guardians. They fought tooth and nail, knowing that failure would mean the death of their mission and their galaxy. In a final, desperate act, Valen reached the central core and activated the explosive devices planted throughout the Nexus. The resulting explosion was cataclysmic. The Aurelius Nexus, once the center of the Galactic Council's power, was reduced to nothing more than a burning wreck. The shockwave rippled across Council space, throwing fleets into disarray. The loss of the Aurelius Nexus left the Council with no way to organize their forces or communicate with their warships. In an instant, the galactic balance of power had shifted irreparably. As the Terran fleet pulled back, their mission accomplished, the full weight of their victory began to sink in. The Galactic Council had been crippled, and their control over the galaxy was no more. The war was not over, but the end was now within reach. The Terran fleet had proven itself to be a force unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. Determined, resourceful, and relentless. Back on Earth, President Evelyn Carter addressed the people once again, her voice filled with a sense of both triumph and solemnity. We have faced the impossible and emerged victorious. The Galactic Council is no more, but our fight for a free galaxy is just beginning. We stand at the dawn of a new era, one where no species will be subjugated by tyranny. We will rebuild, we will forge alliances, and we will ensure that the galaxy belongs to those who fight for freedom. Humanity had won the war, but the true battle for the future of the galaxy was only just beginning. The Terran fleet had broken the chains of oppression, but what would they do with the galaxy now? The Terrans had proven they were a force to be reckoned with, and now it was time for them to shape their destiny.